Get is, yeah, I don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hitting the Apex here with my man Evan. Evan, how's it going?
What's going on, Jazz or Vish? How we doing today?
Wow, really? No, Jazz, as
We
Evan.
just talked
Yeah,
about
we were just talking about Jazz backstage. He is actively watching the Marlins play baseball, which is a choice. And so
it's an interesting one.
Yeah. So we're gonna get you caught up here on That was an eventful one.
That was a fun one. I mean, at least the last third of it was. The last third of the race was pretty eventful. Probably the last 15 laps or whatever it was. Besides that, we were looking forward to talking about Alpine fighting with each other the entire race. But that was definitely a good ending of that race for people who like controversy.
Yeah, it was definitely controversy is the right word. Shout out to Dan Barry. Evan's mom Jane, of course, Brandon as well. I mean, we can talk about the sprint race, but it was, Max kind of cruised through. Oscar came in second. And then, we get to qualify, and Max just had another level he took the car to where...
It was ridiculous. I mean, that dude, we've said this thousands of times already, that dude in that car is something amazing. Whether McLaren has now had a chance to at least be up there with them. Max in that car, especially at a track that he knows so well, like it is in Austria, he's going to get to that place.
Yeah, and after really it was Q2 where he stretched his legs and then he was up, was it 0.3, 0.4? It's just like you're not making that up, and so then it kind of became a race for second. And this is the start of, I guess, the controversy. So Norris lines up second. Piastri was third. Lap time deleted for track
infringement.
For track violation, which, I mean, I'm assuming they had computer telemetry that showed that there was a millimeter between his car and the white paint, because on the onboards and all, it looked like he was pretty much on it. So
it was definitely paper thin. But we talked about this last week. We said that there was going to be these issues. They did a lot of great work, and there was a lot of commentary throughout the week about how this should be the way that tracks are set up nowadays, with how they have the new curbing and the new runoff areas and stuff like that, and with the gravel pits that they have, the small gravel pits that they have, especially right there at the final turn at turn 9 and turn 8 right before it. So there was a lot of people praising how great it was all throughout the week. But either way, they have those sensors, they have those markers that they can tell and they can look at it. And if you're over by a millimeter, you're over by a millimeter. My Aunt Colleen came into the chat as well. Hey, Col.
So, while I agree with you, I do think, and that has always been my stance. Like, hey, the rules are the rules. This is a technical sport. If you violate it, however, there is one team who apparently gets all the gray area in the world, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, because they obviously delete Piastri's time. He gets pushed back down to, I believe, 7th to start the race, which would ultimately cost him a race win because of what happened during the race. I mean, it definitely did, because he was right on catching up to Russell, even with that pushback from the start. But so that was kind of the controversy at the end, and then qualifying. Then we get to the race, and I'll go ahead and pull the standings up. So, as you alluded to earlier, it was kind of or pull the race results up, I should say. So it was, Max opened up a big lead, looked like he was coasting to victory. Then in the second round of pit stops, Red Bull had an issue on the left rear, and the next thing you know, Lando's right there, and then at that point, Lando looked quicker.
Oh, yeah.
And so now it's game on.
Yeah, I mean, it was realistically, it was the tires. The hard tires didn't work that great throughout the race. The mediums were definitely the better tire for that particular track. When they went back to the mediums, the first stint, Max opened up a lead, but it's the lead that Max has traditionally opened up. Where Lando will start to reel him in that end of the second stint, end of the first stint, and that's really realistically what he was doing. And then again, when they put on the hard tires, that's when Max kind of opened up a little bit more, and it was like, all right, well, this is going to be it. And then, like you said, that second stop, which really, funny enough, it kind of played into what happened on the first stop. If you remember correctly, they did release Max kind of, rough.
Well, that is the part where I'm saying, okay, because Hamilton got a penalty for a pit lane violation. Well, he got one for marginally touching the white line, and that is a problem in Austria on the entrance. It's right there, and people make mistakes. He oversteered, he screwed up, deserved the penalty, got the penalty because they're again no advantage, actually disadvantage, but forcing the rules. Problem number one is they absolutely unsafe released Max into Lando's path. He had to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision. Yeah, that's a penalty. And they just ignored it and moved on. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, that was in the first pit stop. And that, again, there was a preponderance of one-sided decisions that resulted in the eventual collision because so you have that issue. So he should have been given a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release like everyone else on the grid is. He's not. Yep. So instead, when the second round of pit stops come, he has the problem. Instead of being behind, he's still in front because that he lost 6 seconds on that exchange because of a pit issue. Not really an error, the left wheel nut wouldn't release.
Exactly.
So then when Lando tries to overtake him, Max doesn't give him room, forces him wide. Now this is Lando's fault, but he had already seen the black and white flags for track infringements. So that was the one that put it over the edge. So now they're going to penalize him for going off the track and gaining a disadvantage.
Exactly.
That's what happened. And he gave the place back to Max. He might as well just kept it at that point because they gave him a penalty anyway.
Well, I think that the actual penalty came from another turn. I think that the penalty was coming off of turn 9. Like we've talked about before, where these cars are pulling some of their highest Gs that they've had. I don't think the penalty came from that turn 3 pass that he made.
No, it did. It did because they
said it did.
Yeah, they put it under investigation.
Oh, okay.
Then they referred to the stewards. This slow process. They only announced the penalty when he was already damaged, but they put the penalty in there, and McLaren knew you're going to get this penalty. So again, all of this leads up to what's going to happen because now he knows. There were roughly 10 laps left or whatever it was. Yeah. He now knows I got to pass him and open a 5-second gap. So now he's more. You can see his overtakes get more desperate. And so on the next one, he's got the inside line. He makes the overtake. Max goes off the track to gain an advantage. Passes him. Doesn't give the place back. No penalty.
Yeah.
I don't. No penalty. For some reason, he didn't have to give the place back. They didn't give him a penalty. So now he's still in front. And that leads to ultimately, so that is 2 penalties they have not given Max. Yep. They should have, which is the only reason he's still in front of Norris. Meanwhile, Norris got a penalty for doing the same thing, but also giving the place back. Now, again, for Norris, it was cumulative because they don't just give you a penalty the first time. Like he did it multiple times, got the black and white flags. But I was surprised they gave Norris a penalty when it was, he kind of didn't have a choice. He would have had to hit Max, and it was a disadvantage, but they did. Yeah. And, again, if we're going letter of the law, then that's fine. But then the letter of the law needs to apply to Max as well.
And the other thing about it is it's not like, in a lot of situations like that, you'll see the driver, I got forced off the track, and he'll stay in front of him. I'm talking about
Right.
Lando this time when he went off that time at turn 3 when he was trying to make the overtake. You'll hear him a lot of times. Oh, he forced me off. Oh, I went off because he wasn't giving me enough room. Or, oh, he did this, and they'll stay in front for a couple laps or a couple more turns. Setting themselves up. We've seen Hamilton do this before. We've seen Max do this before. They don't automatically give up that place. Lando knew that he was going to have to give up that place, and he just said, go right ahead. He let Max go right up the racing line. He didn't even get off or stay on the racing line. He just said, Max, go right ahead. Olay, have a good day, take your place right back, and just let him go right past him at that point. I mean, that to me was kind of something that Lando could have done differently in that situation. Is kind of force him to make that decision, whether to let Max go ahead of him or let Max pass because he went off track in that situation. Because at the end of the day, it's the similar situation like you were saying. When Lando went to the inside and Max got forced off the track, Max said, I'm going to stay in front. Even though I went off the track, I'm going to say, oh, I got forced off and I'm going to stay in front. And I'm going to let them tell me to let Lando pass. And they never did, which they should have done at that point.
Well, they should have
Lando
done.
hit the apex. Lando was ahead of him by the apex. He hit the apex and he stayed on the track. Max never could have made that turn, and he didn't, and he still stayed in front. That was
right. And they should have made him give the place back or given him a penalty. But again, the slow way they're adjudicating this, he stays in front. They go around to the next lap, and Lando had the outside line, was about to overtake. Max saw him, and I mean, you can clearly see he just turned into him, knocked him off the track. And actually, do you know exactly when Lando's car got damaged? Because the first collision, I think, damaged Max's car. Yes. And then if you see, then they get to the so Lando's moving around the outside. Max, you can actually see, is in the middle, sees Lando and turns out to hit him, hits him. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Lando was still okay at that point because then Lando's going to go around make the turn, and then Max turns into him again to not let him pass.
Drives him off the road.
That's when he hits him again. I think that's when the damage was. And then the third time was them going down the straight. He weaved in front of him with a damaged car, which is really dangerous, and forced him onto the grass. Yeah. Which ultimately, all of that led to, because Lando's tire eventually delaminated. It wasn't immediately flat, which is why it ended up putting debris everywhere. But
and his tire got completely shredded.
Right.
I mean, they're at back at Woking right now trying to completely rebuild that car because the whole rear end of that car got tore up from that tire. That the McLaren car, you could see as he was coming down the pit lane, that tire was just whipping and throwing carbon fiber everywhere, and it was dangerous, like you said. For Max to come out and come back at him like that. At the end of the day, you had Max for those 5-7 laps, whatever it was, that Lando was within that 1 second and in that DRS range. Every single time they came up to turn 2 and turn 3 and turn 4, he was moving on braking. And that's the key to all of this this is something that Max Verstappen himself has railed against in the past when he was making those same dive bomb moves against Hamilton, against, Alonso, against whoever it was that he was passing. He was making those same exact dive bomb passes. He was making those same exact passes that Lando was making on him and that Lando was attempting on him. And he was railing against those other guys. It was really hypocritical to see at the end of the race, him come out there and say, oh, well, I was trying to defend or he shouldn't have tried to make the aggressive move. You did that same thing for years. That's what you were known for. You've always been known for that. And for you to then do the same type of moving under braking to try to defend, it was really kind of, it's hard to watch it. You would think that two guys that have raced each other since they were young, since they were kids, would have more respect for each other, in the sense of, Max towards Lando, hey, you have the faster car. You know what? It's not my day. But Max is the type that he wants to win every single race, every single time. And that's what makes him a champion at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's part of it. Everyone wants to win every single time. I think I think this is unsportsman behavior. And you said it's happened. I mean, it's happened multiple times. In 2021, the last time we had a competitive, championship, I mean, at Monza, Hamilton's overtaking him. He's got a clean pass, and he just, I'm going to knock us both out of the race. Like, that's not, and he didn't get penalized for that either. He didn't get penalized in Brazil that year when he basically did the same thing here, which is, he's going to overtake me. No, he's not, turned into him, pushed Hamilton off. When you don't penalize that behavior, he's going to keep doing it. And in this case, there were multiple infringements. Look, the unsafe release is totally not his fault. It is the team. He can't get. So they say go, you go. But they didn't penalize that, even though other cars were penalized for pit lane infringements, but he wasn't. And then, he cut the corner or went off track to keep and then he used it to accelerate and keep the position. Clearly, I mean, the rule's black and white, gaining an advantage by leaving the track. He did that. No penalty. At that point, he's invincible. And so the next overtake, he hit Norris twice on that turn because he would not let him through, and then he ran him off the track on the straight. That is unacceptable. And, then they give him a 10-second penalty. After all the pit stops, Norris is out of the race. He's got like a 30-second gap to get to Nico at that point. Oh, here's a 10-second penalty. Like anyone cares, right?
Yeah.
At that point, the damage was done. At some point, I don't know why he gets adjudicated differently than the rest of the field. He's the driver who least needs it. Like you said at the beginning of this, like him in that car is pretty much an unbeatable combination. And on the days where it's beatable, he cannot be allowed to run cars off the road, hit them, and do whatever he's doing to try and hold position. Everyone else is required to, drive to the sporting regulations, and he needs to be as well. And I mean, it goes right back to 2021 when we see these things. As you said from Austrian qualifying, I'm assuming they had telemetry. The rule is inch off, millimeter off, whatever, you're off. That's a penalty. 2021. Sure. What are the safety car rules? Forget it. We're going on vibes. Here's a chance. Give the championship to the wrong driver. And here, we saw all these penalties. We saw track infringement penalties. We saw pit lane penalties. We saw Norris get a penalty even after giving the place back, and yet this dude just and that's
he just can do whatever he wants.
Well, he gets the penalty in the end, but it grows to that state where he's in the position to do that, because when you give an inch, they take that inch and they take another inch.
Exactly.
Until
it is in life and it is in racing.
Yeah. And so the tragedy of it all is that led to George Russell.
It led to your great predictions as usual.
I got the drivers reversed. I had the Mercedes. I will say this. Obviously, he fell ass backwards into a win when he was way down the track. But you know what? He maximized that car, getting that car into third. I know Piastri got a penalty, which is why he was in third. But getting that car into third, we talked last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, about, his immaturity, making mistakes. None of that here. And if he had done any of that, at the time, it wouldn't have been noticeable. Like, I went from third to fourth. Who cares? Yeah. He drove a clean race and was there to capitalize when Lando and Max collided. So, full credit to him for driving. I mean, we talked about this a few races ago. Crew and Chance, no luck in racing. You put yourself in a position. He did that. He drove. Sure. He didn't do the track limit violation that Piastri did in qualifying. He drove clean. He beat his teammate. Good strategy executed on the race. Unlike actually, a couple of races ago where everyone was like complimenting him on a ballsy pass, which was frankly irresponsible and could have resulted in a multiple car pile up in the first corner. This time he kept it clean, held his position, drove a clean race. No issues, no incidents, was quick, and held that, because by all intents, we know Checo stinks, so that Red Bull's going to be down at the back. But Piastri is quick, and there was no guarantee that even with Piastri having to start in seventh, that Russell was going to be able to hold him off, and he did.
Yeah.
So really, kudos to him. Great race. And he was there to take advantage. And after he took advantage, to a lot of pressure on him. Now he's got to hold off. He's got worn tires. Piastri really quickly overtook Sainz. So now he's got the faster car chasing him down. And he had to drive several clean laps. Any kind of mistake, and it was gone. And, he did that. So I know it's going to be viewed as a gifted race win, but he was in position to capitalize. So full credit to him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just like you were saying, he did run a clean race. It was an uneventful race for him, which is what you kind of want until the very end when he was in that position to win, when he was in that great position to win. But going down the order still too, it looks like I called it right with Lewis Hamilton in fourth, but it wasn't for the reasons we thought. It was a clean, beautiful day that, for the race, which, was something that I thought was pretty fun. It was a good race to watch overall. But then you got the two Haas's in the top 10. I mean, look at that. They did great this race overall. I mean, they're running good. And same thing with RB. You had Danny Rick in ninth place. When was the last time we saw him that far up in the order? He's hasn't really had a great showing until this race. Since the sprint race in Miami. When he came in, what was it, fifth or fourth or something like that? So overall the one person that you wish could have done a little bit better here was Charles. 11th place out of the points. He did have, what was it, a rough start to the race or something like that. It was something that happened in the beginning of the race that pushed him back there. But overall, it was an eventful race. It was something that we all love to see. It's just you gotta keep on hoping that the fight keeps up. And if it does, going into the summer break, coming out of it, it's going to be really interesting that second half of the year. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there for, some really fun stuff to keep on happening in Formula One.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely, there's kind of two drivers at the front now that are competing. I do think we need to talk a little bit about what has happened to Ferrari, because they've fallen off, and, they are kind of battling with Mercedes now.
Yeah, they really haven't. And overall though, that's kind of, it's not that we don't want to see multiple cars up there in the front fighting as much as we like. You could only go up one place at a time usually. Sometimes you can jump up a couple places, if you make a really good pass. But, I kind of like having this like two-tier thing where you have Mercedes and Ferrari fighting. You have McLaren and Red Bull fighting. Then you got, RB and Alpine, and then Haas, right there with them. It's like there's all these battles throughout the lineup now that I think are really interesting and really, cool to see how they're each moving within it. At the beginning of the year, we all thought it was going to be Ferrari and Red Bull. And then Ferrari kind of backed down, and then it was McLaren and Ferrari, and then McLaren jumped up a little bit. It's like they've been moving around so much this year. That's why I said going into the summer break and right after, it's really going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, because they really do got to do something. Ferrari, is one of those teams that they don't like being down there. Fred Vasseur does not want to be the fourth fastest team in Formula One right now. He wants to be up there at the very top. And he's the type of guy that can get them there, a lot more than Mattia Binotto could. So I think that overall, there's going to be a lot of changes that you're going to see on that car. You're going to see a lot of upgrades and stuff like that. Hopefully, coming out of the summer break. I don't know, maybe
but they're technically not allowed to do anything during summer break.
You know what I mean. They do.
I know it would be
research and everything.
Would be pretty brazen if they. I swear to God.
I'm saying after the summer break.
I know. Maybe give it a race and sneak it in, even though there's a lot of winking and nodding going on. The other thing, to your point, the other thing though that did happen as well is, I think this is new this year, but it's certainly in the newer set of regulations. Is that they they reset in the middle of the year, the testing time based on the current standings. So obviously Red Bull in front gets the least amount. That's the way they do things now. But so McLaren still has some decent testing time to continue. As I've put the constructor standings up there, there's a good chunk of time there to continue to develop that car, much more so than Red Bull will have. So hopefully they can continue to develop that car. And at this point, it's really hard to tell. The Red Bull with Max is the fastest car in the group.
Yeah,
that much we can tell. And obviously Max is He's about to be a 4-time world champion. He's one of the best to ever do this.
Yeah.
And so he's almost certainly always, when he's in a car, driving it above its, design capacity, essentially.
For sure.
But I mean, I think it's pretty unprecedented how awful Checo has been, and it's really hard to it's hard to believe that. I mean, look at this. I mean, he is in fifth place in what was, at least for most of the season, clearly the best car in the grid. Now the gap is closed. Some tracks it might be McLaren. It's still at worst the second best car.
For sure.
I mean, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you got the Ferraris that we've been talking about, that we literally just talked about in the last segment about how they've fallen off so much, and they're still ahead of Sergio Perez by, what is it, 20 something points, 28 or 25 points or something like that, or whatever the math is there.
Yeah, and to your point, like, if you look, you got Russell 7 points back. That Mercedes is dog shit.
Yeah.
You got McLaren, which obviously now has become much stronger. But Piastri, even though he's had several races where he's had issues, mechanical and whatnot, 6 points behind. I mean, Checo is very close to falling down into 7th in the fastest car.
No, for sure.
Contract extension. They gave that man a contract extension.
I mean, you don't understand. We don't understand it. We've talked about this since it happened, because you would think that once he got that contract extension, he would have gotten some type of motivation to be like, oh, well, yeah, I'm secure now. I don't have to worry about it. Let me drive a little bit better. Not that he was purposely driving bad, but you would think that maybe there was some weight lifted off of his shoulders that could free him up a little bit. But he just it's bad. And I mean, I hope for Red Bull's sake that this isn't the nail in the coffin for the Max Verstappen situation as well, because Max might be looking at it like, listen, I understand you want to have that second driver that's just somebody solid in that seat, but maybe Max wants somebody there who at least can get them, can keep them or help him with the constructors, can help him keep them ahead in the constructors.
It's a unique team in that this is, as a team, they've never given a crap about the constructors, and so they've always been about winning the drivers' championship. So they're probably more willing to placate this. And also, I mean, look, they're still winning they're going to win the constructors this year anyway.
Yeah,
but it's hard for me to remember just a total drop off in performance like this, and have it rewarded.
No, for sure.
Because I
mean,
think
even Bottas was always finishing second or third.
I think Bottas is a good example of what I was talking about earlier, in that Hamilton also, of course, one of the best to ever do it, right? And you could say, okay, Bottas is probably, when he was driving that Mercedes, at the level the car is at, and he's getting whipped by Hamilton because Hamilton's elevating it above that.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, it's clearly Max elevates that car, but it's it feels like Checo is also way below it too, and so you end up with them at opposite ends of the top 10. He's doing horribly in qualifying too. It's a bizarre one. It's a very, very weird one. And no rest for the weary here, because we are right back on track for the end of the triple header, man.
Love a triple header.
And it's one of, I'm assuming, one of your favorite tracks, certainly one of mine.
Silverstone, one of these places that again, all these guys know, all these guys love. Classic track. It's a great week over there in London this week. I was talking to my father, who's an avid tennis player, earlier this week, that this is one of our Halo situations, is going over to London during this week and going to watch Wimbledon for a couple of days and then going to the British Grand Prix to watch the race over there. That would just be one of the most amazing things, to go experience, because this is one of those, Halo races. This is up there with, Monaco and with Monza, is one of the races that a lot of people think of. It's been going on forever. What does it say? 1950 was the first race there. It's on a former, airstrip from World War II. It's one of those things. A lot of these, teams are right around Silverstone. They test at Silverstone. They the track is one of the biggest staples of Formula One since its inception in 1950, and it's always a fun race as well.
It is, and like you said, the track is classic. It's got it's been modified over time. We've got some potential overtakes, a couple of DRS zones here between turns 5 and 6, between turns 14, 15. Obviously, turn 8 and 9 is where Lewis ran Max off the track a few years ago, and won this race. That was actually, kind of coming full circle. That was after several instances where Lewis backed off to avoid colliding with Max, and this time he says, "I'm not doing that," and nature took its course there. It'll be interesting. So, you come to this weekend. Is Lando coming in with that? Is like, forget this. I'm going to turn into him this, because that's basically, obviously we're talking 3 years ago, which is again the last time there was really competition at the front. To be honest, Max has been walking these races ever since. So, there hasn't been in the occasions he wouldn't until this year. The races he didn't win were not because of pace. It was like, oh, he had a mechanical this or problem that it was not because like, hey, that car is driving faster than him. It's just this year we've had a couple of those, and now the last race, so that's when it ratchets up. So coming into this race, returning to the scene of the last time we actually had competition at the front, and last time Max had kind of gotten away with a lot of contact leading up to that, and Lewis just rightly or wrongly got a penalty for it, because probably he was wrongly on the race on the sense of that in that race, and he deserved that penalty. Just like, I'm not backing down, come hell or high water. I'll be the aggressor actually and take him out if I have to. And I wonder where do you think Lando's headspace is coming into this weekend based on what happened last weekend? And he did flatly say, if Max doesn't think there's anything wrong with what he did, I've lost all respect for him. And then Max doesn't think there's anything wrong with what he did. So
at all.
So where do you think Lando's at? I'm hoping that they're, this is 1-2 on the grid. That's what I want. I want to see them right next to each other on the front row this weekend. Yeah. Hopefully they are. And where do you think Lando? What do you think Lando's going to do if he finds himself, either position, trying to hold Max off, or trying to chase him down?
Well, we've seen fireworks at turn 1 here before. I mean, we've seen fireworks at turn 1, whether it's during the race with Hamilton and Rosberg, or whether it's Joe pretty much doing flips, going into the barrier. This is one of those tracks, and this is one of those races that people go hard for. Was it last year that it was McLaren 1-2 in the beginning of the race that they qualified first and second? I think it was. We'll look that up off camera, but if I'm not mistaken, I think that this last year they were 1-2, and McLaren always does good at Silverstone. But to get back to his headspace, realistically, I think that this might be the final light that we were all looking for, that we were all hoping for, or the final fire that we wanted to see underneath Lando Norris, to see him finally push to that next level, to that place that we want to see him get to, where he's fighting with these guys. As a Lando Norris fan, as somebody who is a self-proclaimed McLaren fan, everybody knows this. I talk about it all the time. The one thing that and I said this last week, that we don't like seeing with Lando Norris is when you get a Lewis or a Max behind him, he just says, go right ahead. Maybe this has finally lit that fire under him, that he says, I have the faster car. I've been pushing him hard. He's not giving me an inch. And now he's saying that he's not messing up and he's not doing the right thing, when clearly he is, when the whole world can see he is. I'm done. I'm done being nice. I'm done taking this. And maybe it lights a fire under him. That's what I'm hoping for. And especially going into Silverstone. This is his home circuit. This is his home race. That crowd goes crazy whenever a British driver wins over there. There's just a turn there named after Lewis Hamilton already, for God's sake, and the dude's not even retired yet. there might be another turn named after Lando Norris if he comes in there and dominates this weekend and completely, obliterates Max Verstappen, which is what I want to see happen. Not just for, Lando Norris's sake. I want to see it happen for Formula One's sake. I think that this is one of those situations that McLaren does good here. Lando runs good here, for the majority of the time. He fought with I think it was last year that if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you were absolutely correct when you brought that up earlier. I looked it up as you were speaking. Max. I mean, Lando took the lead at the beginning, held it for a few laps, and then DRS kicked in. Max got in front and held it from there. But
it was
Lando
like Lewis Hamilton was saying how great he was and stuff like that. So
Lando did finish second, and Piastri finished fourth last year. Hamilton was third.
Yeah. So it was like this is one of those situations I think this might finally have lit that fire under, and I may be giving up my prediction for later on, but I think that hopefully this is one of those situations that lit a fire underneath Lando and got him to where, hopefully gets him to where, he's competing, not just competing with Max, but pushing him even harder. Because right now he's competing with him. He's coming up with him. He's getting there to him, but he's still kind of just being like, all right, I'm here. I'll push. I'm getting close. Last race, he pushed hard and he tried to get past him, but he just didn't get to that level that Max gets to. He didn't get to that level that Lewis got to back where he's the one that's saying, like how we said with Max, either we're crashing or I'm getting past you. Maybe that's what Lando needs to get to at this point.
Yeah, and I think that might have been the turning point, last week, and it's also part of that mentality shift when you're actually, it's not, there's a difference between winning races because we're just running well at this track, winning races because got the pit strategy right, and actually being, hey, our car might just be better. And that puts a different kind of pressure because that sets the and we actually saw this when he finished second a couple of weeks ago. He was pissed. And that is when it changes over. It changes over from, okay, we can actually win every race, and that puts that pressure on you to, to fight at the front a lot more than you would have otherwise. So yeah, I agree. It'd be interesting to see, what kind of fight he puts up. Hopefully the cars are, competitive with each other, so we can see that. This is the timing. Practice on Friday and at 7:30 and 11 for practices 1 and 2. Practice 3 at 6:30 on Saturday, qualifying at 10 on Saturday, and the race at 10 on Sunday.
Perfect timing.
Yep. And then just in terms of the tire allocation, there's a lot of history of this track. This is the famous tire delamination track, I believe.
Lewis Hamilton driving around on 3 tires.
Yeah. So actually, I don't have the tire allocation in front of me. Let me do a quick Google here. I want to say they did the hardest compounds is what I had seen, but
I just want to make one point. There's always that coulda, woulda, shoulda saying that everybody always says coulda, woulda, shoulda. And with Lando, this triple header, it really feels like that situation. In Barcelona, he could have won the race. Last week, he should have won the race. Or at Red Bull Ring, he should have won the race if it wasn't for what Max did. I think he's going to win the race again. Going into our predictions, this week coming into Silverstone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're stepping on your prediction a little bit.
I know.
But we're about
wait
there.
Till you hear second it. Wait till you hear second it.
Well, we're about there anyway because I do have the tires in front of me. It is the 3 hardest compounds, like we thought. Anytime you have delaminations at tracks, they're gonna go conservative for the near future. So it is the 3 hardest compounds. Still might be a 2-stopper. We'll have to see. All right. Everyone, it is, obviously in the chat, get involved as usual. We are ready for our predictions. So for those that are new to the show, you want to hop in the chat and put those in there. It's the top 3 finishers and surprise of the race. Evan, since you've already kind of started, I know Lando won. What's the rest of your order here?
Well, again, like I was saying before, I think Lando's going to win this race. This was kind of an interesting episode because it was such a big target or a big topic to talk about. That whole thing. But this fight is something that we are enjoying in Formula One right now, and I think that this fight's going to culminate with this race. You're going to see Lando Norris, be ahead and stay ahead, and he's gonna to hopefully dominate. In my opinion, I think that this is his opportunity to come out there and kind of stamp his fist, or throw his fist up in the air and say, Max, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, you're wrong. My car's faster, and I'm going to stay up here right now. And again, going into the summer break, which what starts in, is it after this race is the summer break? Or I think it's in a few weeks. It gives them a lot of momentum, going into the future. Now, as for second and third, this is where it gets kind of interesting. I am not putting Max Verstappen in the top 3 this week.
All right, is that just a statement, or is that your surprise pick?
That's just a statement. That's not
Okay.
going to be my surprise. That's just a statement.
All right.
Which is a surprise as it is, but it's not
Yeah.
my surprise.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton P2.
All right.
I'm going to go with George Russell P3. Now, that in itself is a surprise because it is an all British podium.
Okay.
But my surprise is going to be that you're going to see an Alpine driver ahead of Max Verstappen in the top 10 this race. And it's not because Max Verstappen's going to crash out.
How do you? All right, I gotta ask. How do you envision this happening?
Because I think that something's going to happen in the sense of a pit stop issue or a penalty, or something's going to happen during the race that Max Verstappen's going to drop down and he's going to get thrown out of sequence, or he's going to get thrown, maybe not crash out, but maybe a tire issue. Maybe, he blows a tire, doesn't crash, but, he gets back to the pits like how he did this week and he gets pulled down. And I think Alpine's going to kind of be up there in a good position to be able to take advantage of that, kind of, the way that Haas was this week, where, they had both cars, positioned to be in that top 10. I think Alpine's going to have that same, thing going on. They just signed Gasly, so now they have those two drivers that hate each other, both signed under contract moving forward. They're bringing in new technical advisors from Ferrari, from Red Bull, so there's a lot of movement in Alpine right now, which is something that we want to see. It's one of those manufacturers that makes everything for their car. They do their own engine. They have their own car, so it's one of those situations. I think that they're going to be in a good position this week, and it could play to their advantage. Something could happen when Max, like I said, a front wing gets messed up and he has to come in and pit out of sequence. The tire blows, something happens in that sense, because I think that you're going to see Lando and Lando and George and even Oscar be up there during qualifying, up there with him, whether it's, Lando in first and Max in second, or Max in third or Max in fourth, that he's going to have a fight on him. And he's not just going to be able to drive away from them like how he always does in the beginning of the race. And we've seen crazier things happen at this track, in the past, that I think something's going to happen like that. Somehow, some way, something is going to happen that's going to put Max on a bad strategy or put him off of everybody else. And he's going to be behind an Alpine driver by the time the race ends, and it's not because he's out of the race.
All right, bold prediction. Carly in the chat, Lando, Max, Oscar, Alpine top 5. She went up to you.
Well, there you go.
And then
we all know she's the French or the French Revolution person now. That Moni's not on the show anymore.
And then your son apparently has a problem with both of you. So you'll be hearing from both your aunt and your dad later on that one. So
I'm sure.
All right, I do think the McLaren will be strong here. So I am going to partially agree with you, but I'm going the McLaren 1-2 here, Lando and Oscar. And then I got Max in third.
Okay.
I think at some point, I think so. There have been obviously races where the McLaren's been faster,
Yeah.
but Max has just been able to hang on to that top spot, like in qualifying, and kind of. I feel like this is where it tips over, and it's just faster, so that McLaren can put both cars up there, kind of control the race that way. We know Checo's not going to be of any help.
Yeah. He'll be lucky if he gets out of P2 this week, I think.
Yeah. So I like the McLaren 1-2. I mean, Max is still worst third. So I stuck him in there. As you said, obviously issues can happen, and that is the point of the surprise prediction. But for me, my surprise prediction is a car that should be significantly better that's been garbage for some reason. I'm going Fernando Alonso, top 7.
Go top 5. Go top 5. Come on, be bold.
I don't see. Okay, fine. I'll go top 5 because he's not going to even finish the points. So there's no difference. There's no difference. But like that car is terrible. I mean, it's only faster than the Williams.
Yeah, it's not looking great right now.
Yeah, and then the Kick Sauber, whatever 57 names that thing has now at this point. So I mean, that is a that's an appalling fall off for them. So
yeah,
and wow, you got grandma mad too, Crafty. So
that's funny.
Things are happening. All right.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, to recap the races is this weekend, the qualifying 10 a.m. Saturday, race 10 a.m. Sunday. So it's an easy one. For whatever reason, they've been doing the race and qualifying starts at different times, not this weekend. So, and then we'll be back. I'm not sure about next week because it's my sister's birthday on the 9th. So, might be a week off there. But there is actually, thankfully for the drivers, the crews, and everything, there's also a week off next weekend for the teams after 3 in a row here. So
yeah.
Much needed breather. We will be back though. Next show we will review this British Grand Prix, and then what's next after that? I should look this up. You know, I'm bringing the no-show prep over to this show, and it doesn't belong here. Hungary. Ooh, that's always that's an interesting high downforce track. We haven't had one of those recently. It's interesting to see how the cars respond there. And then after that, a week later is Belgium. So you're kind of getting the opposite, opposite tracks and back-to-back weeks. So there's a lot of fun times ahead. There's no week off between Hungary and Belgium. So after this 1 week off, they're going to get back-to-back again. And then I believe it's summer break. So we will be back soon to preview this, to preview Hungary and also review the British GP. Thank you. I don't even want, she's your mom, so I don't call her Jane, but Jane.
That's fine. You can call her Jane. That's her name.
Mrs. Soanes works too.
No, you don't have to call her Mrs. Soanes. You can call her Jane.
Anyway, we will be back soon. Evan, thanks for joining me as always.
Not a problem.
All right. Take it easy, everyone.